Good morning, folks. Welcome to another episode of my weekly show, The Rabbinic Cynic. I'm a cynical rabbi. I'm just cynical in general. My name's Rabbi Andrew. If you don't know who I am, Rabbi Andrew Allen Bentley. And if you like this podcast, vlogcast, hit like and subscribe on the YouTube channel. Today, on Fridays, is Erev Shabbat, the evening of the Sabbath, the Jewish Sabbath, which falls on from Friday sundown to Saturday sundown. We call that Shabbat. And we read the weekly Torah portion. And today I always like to kind of talk about the weekly Torah portion. We're in the book of Deuteronomy, Dvarim, right? So if anyone of you don't know, we do read it every week. We take a separate section and we read it from the 5 books of Moses. And today is the Torah portion called Tavo, which means when you come into the land of Israel. And it's all, again, part of Moses' last speech to the Jewish people. And there's a very famous verse, a passage, actually, it's a collection of verses, that discusses the history of the Jewish people, and a very interesting practice that was we would bring the first fruits of our labors, like if you have a herb garden or a vegetable patch, whatever it is you have an allotment. We have allotments in England. You would come take it to the high priest, which we don't do that anymore. And you say there's a special number of verses that you say. And you say, my father was a wandering Aramean, and we were in the land of Egypt, and we were treated like slaves, and lots of bad shit really happened. I'm really paraphrasing. The Torah does not say bad shit, but I'm saying it. And some bad stuff happened. So what does that all mean? So there's this question of identity. Who are we? In the modern world, we have kind of an answer for everything, really, right? We are told, there's been 4 centuries of secularism, right? So the question is, who am I, why am I here, and how shall I live, right? Modern society doesn't really answer the questions of who I am, why am I here, and how I should live. Right? We have science, we have technology, we have market economy, we have a liberal democratic state, right? This is what most of us live in Western society. And we're not really told, that's the American dream. We're not told why we are here, how to live. Well, sometimes we are. I mean, that's the big question, right? What's going on right now in some political areas is that we are maybe being told from that perspective of how we should live. But the real question that we have to ask, because science answers a lot of questions, right? We have a lot of understanding of what is good economics. We have a lot of understanding of what is good politics now, even, right? What is politics? And we could differ on that. But and no matter what aisle of the spectrum, what aisle of the political, what side of the political aisle that you sit on, these are still fundamental questions that we're all struggling with. Is the question of who am I? Who am I? And Moses struggled with that question as well. That's one of the, we find these stories in the Bible. They're not necessarily there to say this is the history of the Jewish people. But no, these are philosophical questions that we have to ask ourselves in every generation. And so when Moses was confronted at the burning bush with, the burning bush, and God spoke to him from the burning bush and said to him, you need to now, get off your tuchus, right? You've been with your father-in-law in Midian, shepherding your sheep, doing that for many, many years. And now you need to go back because the Jewish people the Israelites are in trouble. It's your job now to lead them into freedom, right? To lead them out of slavery into the promised land. And Moses looked at the burning bush or looked at and said, well, who am I to do that? Who am I? I don't really know who I am. And, Moses was asking a serious question. As someone who has 3 citizenships, I ask myself the same question, right? Moses was, born an Israelite, But then, as we know, he was raised as an Egyptian. He had to, once he realized, he realized his identity and then moved to Midian to escape after killing an Egyptian slave master who was beating one of his compatriots, one of his people, an Israelite. So his identity was split between being an Egyptian, between being a Midianite, where he spent many of his working years, and then being a leader, becoming the Israelite leader. So Moses, in his humility, turned around and said, "I don't know who I am. Who am I? Who am I to be doing this?" And at the same time, who are you? Who is God? Who should I tell them sent me? And God's response was, I am what I will be. Yesh asher yeh, right? Which is a very kind of a non-answer, right? I always go back to like Doctor Who, right? Who are you, Doctor? Doctor Who? So that can be the same. That's kind of the answer that the God that lives beyond time, which is the idea of the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, is a God that is outside of time, that lives outside of time. The universe, the creation, we don't know what happened before creation. We don't know what happened before the Big Bang, right? We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know how long the universe is. We know it's going to expand, and then all the galaxies are going to contract at some point, right? It expands and contracts. We know that from science. But the question of that we don't understand, the dark matter, right? God, the universe, those things that we don't understand, we can only understand from that human perspective. And so God's response in the Torah was, yeah, I am who I will be. I am who I will be what I will be. I am what I am. Or another way of putting it is the way that the Jewish understanding is that we look at ourselves and understand ourselves through a lens of history. And I think that's the key to understand there. That Moses is understanding himself through his own history. So we have personal history, and then we have a collective history. And, one of the things about the Jewish people is that we've endured because why? And I think it goes back to that passage that when the fruits of our labors every year, we go to the high priest, or, symbolically speaking, and we make this announcement that my father was an Aramean and I was wandering and we were slaves, and then God took us out of Egypt with a mighty outstretched hand. Like he took us into freedom. And that very idea has kept the Jewish people alive because we've been very tenacious in our view of our own history. And what has kept us alive and going as a people for all these centuries, for all these millennia, is that how we look at how we see ourselves from the perspective of history and how we have adapted to our history. And that's a lesson that everyone is struggling with. All nations are struggling with that concept of history, right? You can see that happening in the United States of America, the argument about the discussion of, are we looking back to how do we understand American history, right? And we can understand it from different perspectives, whether you're left-wing or right-wing. Everyone is struggling with those concepts, the concepts of how do we teach American history? How do we understand who we are within that relation, and how should we move forward? And even beyond that, it goes even further than that. We have to understand ourselves and our own history. And where we're going, where we are going to be moving forward to, right? If we don't understand our own past behaviors this high holiday season, right, as we're coming into Rosh Hashanah, how are we going to then move forward if we don't understand where we've been? So you have to know where you've been to know where you are and to know where you are going. And I think that's the very essence, I believe, of this Torah portion, is to understand the history where we have come from. And that is grounded. It's like a lightning rod. It's like a ground. It's a ground, right? When you ground electricity, you put the electricity in the ground. It goes downward. It's like looking back, so that if there is a short, right, it goes to ground. It goes back to where it came from, or it goes to the earth. It goes where we came from. that we are the lightning rod of history, but we also have to be grounded. We're the lightning rod of the future, but we have to also be grounded in our history. And that's a big lesson that that Moses is trying to give the Israelites before they go into the land of Israel, is to look back, is that idea of remembrance. There's this understanding when people have asked me as a rabbi, people on their deathbeds often say, where am I going? Am I going to heaven? Is there something after I die? And my answer, some religions have a definitive answer for that. Judaism doesn't really have a definitive answer for where we are going when we die. Right? We have some theories. We have a theory that there is the next world. We have a theory that maybe that there will be this type of consciousness that survives. But the question is, we don't understand what that really means. But what we do say is that what we have done in this world, the remembrance of who we are, how we will be remembered, is the critical aspect, the critical defining point of our lives, the defining what that defines a human being's life is how we are remembered by our children and by the people that we have had an impact on in our lives. Winston Churchill said something fascinating, and looking at this world that we live in, where everything's on TikTok, right? Have you ever seen it? It said, "I've been friends with my cousin, who I've known my whole life, for 14 years." It says, "Celebrate your friendship with my cousin." Hey, cuz, I'm talking about my cousin in England, Michelle. Michelle, if you're watching this, I'm saying hi, Michelle. Michelle and I have not been friends for 14 years. We've been friends our whole lives. Right, but Facebook thinks it's only been 14 years, right? So social media has taken things into very short periods of time. Time has a very different meaning, right? My Doctor Who reference, timey-wimey, wibbly-wobbly, right? But we are existing in a sense in time that we are, our genes, our DNA are living. Like if you go into your DNA and you examine it on these websites where you can go into your chromosomes, you can see your living history that is living inside your body right now. And so from that perspective, there's a lot more to us than what we just see on the internet, or the couple of pictures that we may have just been friends with somebody because we friended them 15 years ago, however long Facebook has been around or Twitter's been around. But I think that's a challenge that we have in our modern society, is looking at the bigger picture. And so Rabbi Sacks, I'm getting a lot of this from Rabbi Sacks's last book, which we are kind of taught to, the introduction says, you need to learn this with people, read it with people. And I'm going to end with just a quote from this last paragraph, which I think is very powerful. That Jews have told the story of who we are for longer, and this is Rabbi Sacks, and more devotedly than any other people on the face of the earth. That is what makes Jewish identity so rich and resident. In an age in which computer and smartphone memories have grown so fast, from kilobytes to megabytes to gigabytes, while human memories have become so foreshortened, there is an important Jewish message to humanity as a whole. You can't delegate memory to machines. You have to renew it regularly and teach it to the next generation. Winston Churchill said, the longer you can look back, the further you can look forward. Think about that. The longer you can look back, the further you can look forward. You can see forward. Or to put it slightly differently, as Rabbi Sacks says, those who tell the story of their past have already begun to build their children's future. Right? If you tell the story of your past, you've begun to build your children's future, right? Understanding that history. It's a very powerful statement. Churchill, of course, Churchill had that way with words. The longer you can look back, the further you can see forward. Think about that. And I think that's a very powerful message for the high holidays. It's just a very powerful message, whether you're Jewish, whether you're secular, whether you're whatever religion you are, wherever you come from. That is a message that resonates with us, right? That we are doing it for our children, for future generations, for the people that we mentor. And so as we approach the high holidays, we got one more week left, and I'm going to be blowing the shofar for another week, and I'm going to be blowing it again probably a little bit longer after that. For those of you, I'm going to do I will do a little special on the Rosh Hashanah in the morning right before I go to services at Desert Outreach Synagogue. That was a little plug. If you are interested, Desert Outreach Synagogue is having high holiday services. You can PM me or go to rabbibentley@gmail.com if you want more information. And I will be starting an in-person Torah study and online on October 8th, where we can go in depth and you can actually be involved in these discussions yourself with first meeting. So again, PM me again. I'm going to put up here, this is my... Here is my, I'm coming up with my banner. There's my email address right there. So you can see my email address. I'll leave it on there for a little bit. You want to email me about high holidays or my talk in Torah, which is going to be an in-person and a special Zoom sessions where you can come, and it's open to people across the globe. And we're going to work out different times. There's going to be some in-person classes out here in the Coachella Valley as well. But with that, I'm going to leave you, have a beautiful weekend. I'm going to leave you with the sound of the shofar. So look back. The longer you can look back, the further you can see forward. Listen to those words. Everybody have a beautiful week. Live long and prosper. And don't forget, be kind to each other. Bye.